This next one, Mary Hart's a personal friend of ours for many, many years. She's an amazing lawyer. She's got a nickname of Lightning Lips, but I'll let that go. We are going to have fun. She's a great lawyer. She's a great friend. Cheryl and I originally met her on a cruise one night. She had purple hair. It was Halloween. I really thought it was her original hair. And when I saw her the next day, she was talking to me, and I didn't know who she was because she didn't have purple hair. There's very few people in my life that I've connected with this easily, this well, for this many years. Out of all my trusted friends, I would put her at the top of my list of people with the highest of integrity, which she always loves it when I say that. And she's an amazing teacher. And she's done a great job going from like a private money lending investor, doing like $4 to $6 million a year in loans, to now doubling and tripling that volume. And to go on that journey and to make all the systems, the people, and everything you need is a lot of work. And when we look at hard money lenders and we think, man, they're just rolling in all these returns, there's a lot of things that go into that. And so I asked her to teach on this because it's a topic I've never seen taught, Mary. So I gave this one to you. You could have spoken on so many different things. She's helped us with keynoting on legacy and thinking big over the years. But today she's going to talk about building a lending business. Who would like to learn how that works? All right, on your feet for a big round of applause, Mary Hart.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I can hear me, so you must be able to hear me. Jim, I was thinking about, you asked how many deal makers people have been to. I think I'm at least at 10, probably at least 10. This is my favorite organization all over the country. I try to come to every deal maker event I can. I'll be at the one in Richmond in March. So thank you guys for your patience and listening to me today. And I don't think it's fair to me that I got put on behind David Phelps and Jeff Watson, just saying. But we've got an exciting topic today. This is about a 55-minute presentation, so this is going to be about a 10,000-foot overview. So if you have questions after this that we don't get to, come find me out in the hall, find me in the lobby, wherever. I'm happy to chat more with you about it and answer your specific questions. I know Jim asked who had been lending in here, but let me ask it again. How many people have done at least one loan? Okay, a lot of people. How many people have done 10 loans or more? Okay, also a good number. How many who have done 10 or less want to scale up to more of a business type of lending? Okay, see fewer hands. How many people who've never done a loan at all want to start lending? Okay, got a few more hands. So let me give you a little bit about my background so you'll know why I'm standing up here. I am a retired attorney. I've been an attorney for 34 years, hard to believe. Not practicing anymore. I shut down my firm in 2017 because I realized I made a hell of a lot more money as an investor and a lender than I ever did as the owner of my own firm with 10 employees. And I was tired of babysitting employees. So I shut down the law firm and instead just concentrated on investing and lending. I became an accidental lender in probably about 2003 or 4. When somebody asked me, I met a guy at a RIA, and he said, hey, I've got a client that needs a private money loan. I think he probably called it a hard money loan. I certainly was not a hard money lender. And he said, are you interested? I said, I've never done that. I've drafted loan documents as an attorney, but I've never loaned money myself. And he said, well, she's paying 15 and 5, which I didn't even know what that meant. 15 and 5, what does that mean? Well, 15% interest, 5 points, which was 5% of the loan amount. And I happened to have, it was like a $50,000 loan. And I happened to have that cash lying around. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And boy, was I hooked. That was awesome. She actually, my very first person, went into default. But then the default interest rate jumped up to 18%. And when I started threatening to foreclose, she refinanced me out. And so I made a lot of money. And then I was sort of an accidental lender hobbyist for a few years. And then I kind of stopped for a while. And then some other people started asking me to lend again. And probably over the last 6 or 7 years, maybe more than that now, actually, probably more like 10, I've done lots and lots and lots of loans, what I call as a hobbyist. It was just me, my little Excel spreadsheet, and a calculator. Patty Bain back there, who now works with me at Fair Oaks Funding, we're going to call on her later, she was my most prolific borrower over the last 5 years, Patty, probably. So Patty is a Class A contractor licensed in Virginia, and I think in 2024 we did $5 million worth of deals together, her as the borrower and me as the lender. And I realized at the end of 2024 that I had originated over $7 million, which I had no idea. I mean, 5 of them were with Patty. And I thought, well, do I want to ramp this up? Because I probably ought to do something other than an Excel spreadsheet and a calculator, hand calculating every payoff. Or do I want to shut this down? And right about that time, Patty said, I'm kind of tired of being in Richmond. I want to take a break from flipping. I said, hey, I sure could use a contractor on my team. Do you want to come work with me? And Fair Oaks Funding was born. So before that, I was just lending my own money, my own lines of credit. I did a couple loans with my sister, but only 2 loans. So everything else for 20-some years was just me and my money. And then I realized, well, if I'm going to ramp this up and I'm going to start paying employees, I've got Patty working with me. We've got Allie Murphy, who's doing, a lot of you know Allie? Who knows Allie? She's doing our marketing and our automations and CRM and all that type of stuff. I'm like, man, I got to make some money because now I got to pay people. It's not just me. I got to pay actual people. And so we started ramping it up. We are now on track. If we loan all the money we're underwriting right now, we'll probably be at 13 or 14 million by November. In loan originations this year, so we've doubled it from last year. And that's us trying not to work very hard. Because in the middle of all that, Patty's been moving, I've been moving, I'm selling houses, I'm selling my farm, I'm doing all this stuff and renovating a house, and I was like, man, I don't have time to do this. And sort of accidentally, we're at 13 or 14 million. So I thought, well, gosh, what would happen if we really scale it next year, if we really actually try? So Jim asked me to speak on scaling a lending business, and I'm new in the scaling. Just since last December, I set up my LLC in November for my first bank account for that company in December, and we've been scaling up since then. So before I get too far into it, I do want to point out I am an attorney, and like Jeff Watson said, I'm not your attorney today. This is all education. That's my legal disclaimer. None of this is legal advice. So take what you get from this presentation, apply it to your own life, but you're going to need to have your own attorneys if you need legal advice. You guys know we attorneys have to say that sort of thing. So like I said, this is going to be an overview because we just taught, Wendy Sweet and I just did a 3-day course on lending as well. So all of this, we could go ad infinitum on all these topics. But one thing I wanted to go to first was I hear a lot of confusion with people like, what's the difference between private money and hard money lending? You guys always hear that question, or do you have that question? Anybody have that question? Why are some people private money? What's hard money? And I have found that everybody defines it a little differently. I think hard money originally came about because people were just loaning on a hard asset, real estate, and they weren't really vetting the borrowers very much. It was more just the value of the collateral. And so it was called hard money. In my mind, where this is sort of morphed is that private lenders are people who are mostly loaning their own money, maybe some family money. They're doing 1 to 6 deals a year, 1 to 5 deals a year. They were what I was for 22 years. It's not a big scaled up business. Switching over to the hard money lending, that becomes more like, okay, we're going to treat this as a real business with systems and processes and employees and software and try to see how big we can grow it. Not everybody wants to grow it super big. I know lenders who started out, they sold a business, they had about $5 million, and now they've got 3 funds worth more than $100 million each, that type of thing. I don't think that person would have said at the beginning they would scale that big. But they started putting systems in place, and people started coming to them as borrowers, people started coming to them as investors, and now they have a big business. This is really hard for me to see. So to me, that distinction, private lending versus hard money, the way I think of it is, are you using your own money and doing a few deals? Are you using other people's money or institutional money and doing more deals, more like a business? And really, when you start using other people's money is when you can scale. Because unless we're, mega 100 millionaires in this room, we're going to run out of money. There are more borrowers than money when you're using your own money. So you have to start taking other people's money to scale up a business. Why do people want to lend? You guys, there are a lot of lenders in this room. Who wants to shout out one reason you like to lend? I bet it's in this list. Charlie.
We get paid first.
You get paid first. That's absolutely right. Yes? Mailbox money. Yes, sir. Anybody else? I'll say it again. Secure asset. I'll say one of my favorites. To me, it's a backpack business. Even as I scale, I can do my part of it from anywhere in the world. So some of you heard this when we were at the Lending Institute a couple weeks ago. Last year, I was in the Caribbean on a trip, and I remember sitting by the pool, drinking a pina colada, and taking in $14,000 in interest payments, sending off a payoff, getting a payoff, sending investors money. I'm like, dang, this is nice. Look at this beautiful blue sea with a nice rum drink in my hand. It was wonderful. But there are many reasons you like it. Those three, to me, are the biggest reasons. Unlike the stock market or other things where you're not really sure what your return is going to be until the end, with lending, you know what your return is going to be if everything is structured right and goes right, right? It's contractual returns. The documents tell you exactly what you're going to get paid at the end of it, right? That's assuming if you're on an equity share and you're just going to split profits, obviously you won't know that until you know what the profits are. But if you're more of a traditional lender and the way you're getting paid is interest, points, fees, you're going to know what your return is going to be. For instance, if I had a $100,000 loan at 12% interest and 3 points, and a point is 1% of the loan amount, in case you didn't know that, that's the origination fee, that 3 points. If that's a 12-month loan, my cash-on-cash return is $15,000, right? Because $3,000 would be 3%. That's the origination fee. $12,000 is the interest. So that's $15,000, 15% cash-on-cash return, right? Now, if I turned that money twice a year, now my cash-on-cash return is not 15%, it's 18%, because I still get the 12% interest for 12 months, but now I'm getting those 3 points twice. So that's 6% plus 12%, I'm now at 18%. If I had 3 loans at 4 months each, and I turned them over as soon as they came in, that's a 21% cash-on-cash return, right? Now, why am I saying cash-on-cash return? Because that's assuming that $100,000 is all my cash that I'm putting in there. But what if I'm leveraging other people's money? What's my return then? Let's take my line of credit. So if I borrowed $100,000 for my line of credit to lend out, I'm currently paying on my line of credit 5%. So if my borrower is paying me 12% plus 3 points, let's say it's a year, I'm making $15,000 and I'm paying my line of credit $5,000. I get a $10,000 cash, net cash, but what's my return? It's infinite, isn't it? Because I have no money in the deal. I don't even have a dime of my money in the deal. I have some risk in the deal because if my borrower doesn't pay, I still have to pay back my line of credit. A line of credit is a little risky to use. But let's say that I was leveraging Patty's money. And I said, Patty, do you want to put $90,000 in? I'll put $10,000 in, either as a wrap or a co-lender, and I'm sure we'll hear more about those terms throughout the few days here. And I'm going to pay her 10%, and I'm going to get the 12% plus the points. So I'm keeping that spread. But I've only got $10,000 in the deal. Did my return just go way up? Because I'm leveraging Patty's money, right? How many people in here know friends or family who would be thrilled with 6, 7, 8, 9% return on their money, right? So many people. I'm always shocked. Like we've just been taking our first investors this year, other than my siblings, which I've done a couple of loans with them. And I might say, depending on what the loan is, hey, we can pay you 8% or 9% or 9.5%. I'm always ready for people, because I'm usually around investors, to say, wait a minute, whoa. I need double-digit returns. Where's my 10%? Where's my 11%? Do you know no one has said that to me? No one. They're like, 8%? Oh, my God, it's awesome. Thank you so much. Because they don't know how to go out and do this. So they're making what, if they were in treasuries, 4%? I'm doubling that. And they do nothing but wire me some money and then get more back. So those contractual returns for the lender is really great, but even for your investors, you'll find lots of people out there who have no idea how to go make 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% themselves. So I love the contractual returns. It's secured by a tangible asset. It's secured by real estate. For the most part, we only lend in first lien position. So is it Jonathan who said we get paid first? Was that you? Who said that? Oh, Charlie, sorry. We get paid first. I think that lending is the best seat at the real estate table. I know Tom Olson has said that over the years. It's a great effort to return ratio, right? I'm going to get paid first. I'm going to get paid before the flipper gets paid, right? So if the flipper loses money, they're in the first loss position before I lose a dime. That's what the paperwork does for me, because I'm in a first lien position. If as the first lien lender, I allow a second to go on there because the first lien lender has to give permission for that. That second lien position is riskier. Why? Because if there's not enough cash to pay me off or not to pay anything after me, that second lien holder gets nothing. Or if I foreclose first, that second lien holder is just wiped out. Now, the second lien holder, if they're not getting paid, they can foreclose subject to my first. They get the property, but they have to pay me as the first. So if there's enough equity, maybe they'll want to do that. But if you're going to decide whether you're going to lend in first or second lien position, just be aware that anything other than first has a lot more risk to it. Your prices should go up. Your interest rate should be higher. Your points should be higher because that's what we're being compensated for is our risk. Right? So raise those things if you're going to go and choose to be in second position. I've only been in second position twice, 3 times actually. Twice were wrap loans where I was the wrap lender, and that's how we do it. We go in second position, but I controlled the whole deal. I found the deal, I vetted the deal, I babysat the deal. I got a power of attorney from the lender who was in first position, giving me the authority to foreclose his position and mine if anything happened. So I was in control, and I felt very comfortable about that. The only other time I've agreed to go in second was behind Wendy Sweet's company. You guys know Wendy, Carolina Hard Money? And Wendy had a big loan. They were putting like $4 million in on a big townhome complex in the Charlotte area. And the borrowers were putting close to $1 million in of their own money, and they needed just $350,000 more. And they said, hey, would you go in second? We'll pay you 20% interest and a $25,000 fee for 4 months. I was like, yeah, that maths for me. Especially because I knew I was behind Wendy's company, and I knew Wendy was going to underwrite and had underwritten the deal. I was underwriting the deal. I knew there was tons of equity. Those were the only times that I agreed to go in second lien position, just so you know. I'm very, very conservative with what I do. Third reason that this is a pillar of wealth creation is because you can scale it. You can go from a solo lender who's doing 1 to 5 deals a year, 1 to 10 deals a year with just your own money. This thing is pulling my pants down. Sorry, guys. Got this thing here. Lost a little weight. My pants falling off. So you don't want to see that. Trust me. So I'm going to keep hitching them up. But anyway, with lending, you can scale it. It's easy. It's like any other business you can scale with the right people, systems, processes. We're going to talk about that. But this is why I really like it. Now, I want you to look at the green box, though, very carefully. When you start scaling, it no longer is as passive as what you might have been doing as a solo lender. When I was a solo lender, I was working only with borrowers that I knew, liked, and trusted, repeat kind of deals, and I didn't have to take that much time to get things ready to go and to feel comfortable in the deal. And by the way, knock on wood, Patty doesn't like when I say this, 0 foreclosure record in 22 years. I've never had to do that. I've had to threaten it twice. Well, now that I'm scaling and I'm working with a bunch of borrowers I don't know, did my risk for foreclosure just go up? Heck yeah. Now I'm more of a hard money lender. My risk is up, my rates are up. Jim's still grandfathered in on my private lending rates. I told him not to tell anybody, but I just told you, but nobody else gets that but Jim. Anyway, so when you're scaling up, just realize it's not nearly as passive. You're going to hear me talk about it more. You really have to understand that you've got to build the systems, the staff, the software, everything purposefully and intentionally to lessen your risk. All right, so let's assume that you have decided you don't want to be just a hobbyist and you're ready to do this as a business. What do we need to do to scale a business? And like I said, it's pretty much like scaling any business. The first thing you need to do is set your foundation and have your correct legal structure. Now, you can be an LLC, limited liability company, you can be a corporation. You should talk to your CPA about how to be taxed in either one of those situations. Are you going to be taxed as an S-corp, even if you're an LLC? Are you going to be taxed as a solo, sole proprietor? If you've got a partner, are you going to be taxed as a partnership? Those are CPA questions, and you should always have that conversation with your CPA before you decide the tax aspects of this. Because you can be an LLC and file a document with the IRS to be taxed as an S-corp, for instance. So there are options, but you need to talk to your CPA. So you want to form your entity. That becomes your first layer of liability protection, although it's hard to protect yourself from your own negligence, even with an LLC, just so you know. Somebody's giggling. Who's giggling? Huh? Jeff's giggling, yes, I should know. Right, Jeff?
I mean, your own ability to screw up will destroy
Right. I used to have lots of people come to me to set up LLCs, and they were sole proprietors, basically. They're like, yeah, in case I screw up, I don't want anybody to be able to sue me. I'm like, this isn't going to work for you. This will protect you if your employees screw up, but not you. So just realize that. But it does make you look more professional, right? If I'm just out there, hey, I'm Mary Hart, I want to loan you $1 million. People are, who are you? If I say, hey, I'm Fair Oaks Funding, we're a North Carolina limited liability company, we've got this kind of track record, we've been around for this number of years, which isn't very long so far, that makes me look more professional, right? So set up your entity. Once you have your entity, you're going to want to open up dedicated bank accounts. This is not rocket science, you guys know this. Don't ever commingle your personal money with your business money. Don't use your business accounts to pay for lunch if it's not a true business lunch. Don't say, oh my gosh, I forgot my personal credit card. I need to go buy an outfit. I'm going to throw it on the business card. You can reimburse yourself, but it just doesn't look good if you get sued for something in the business, and they're going to try to poke through that business to get to your personal assets. The more commingling you have of your personal stuff in your business, the more likely a judge is going to ignore your business. So treat it like a business. Have dedicated accounts. For me, when I started this, I opened one bank account initially. I now have 4 in Fair Oaks Funding because I realized I needed more than one. You got your operating account, which has all my business expenses running in and out of it. Then I opened a loan servicing account, which is wires come in, wires go out. Payments come in, payments go out. Everything comes in and out of that loan servicing account. Then I opened up a reserve account for construction reserves and interest reserves. If I'm holding money that's going to be used to pay rehab draws or pay interest payments for a borrower, that goes in its own dedicated account. Then, because of some software I'm using, I opened up a mortgage pool account. You may or may not need that. But just realize that every account has a purpose, and every account adds a little layer of complexity anytime you add these things. But it's important to make sure, if you're taking other people's money particularly, that you're tracking these things right. You've got one account the money's coming in and out of. So like, let's say that I've got a rehab draw. I've had the wire into my loan servicing account. I then set aside the rehab money into the construction reserve account, right? Now my borrower wants a draw. I'm going to wire them the money out of that construction reserve account, and I'm going to take the draw fee and transfer it to my operating account because that's now my earned income. Do you see how all this kind of works? Again, not rocket science, but you want to make sure that you're following the flow of money, so if you need to get audited or you do get audited or you need to, for bookkeeping or taxes, you can really go back and see where everything is. Third thing I would say when you're starting this business is figure out what your buy box is, so to speak. What kind of loans do you want to do? Do you just want to do fix and flip loans? Do you want to do bridge financing where maybe you're funding the purchase of a house that someone's then going to refinance as a rental, but they have to season it a little while, so you have a short-term bridge loan? Do you want to do new construction from the ground up? And if so, is that just for residential or is it also commercial? So I started out just as a fix and flip lender. I then added on bridge loans, then I added on new construction, then I added on commercial. So we do all of that right now, but I didn't do it all at once. I started and grew that slowly as I became more familiar with it and got comfortable with each different type of loan. I think one of the hardest things for me is scaling up is setting those loan parameters. That's the next one, number 4 there. What do we want to charge for interest rates? How are we going to charge for points? What are our fees? When are we going to collect these things? Are we always going to require that the points be paid to us at closing? Are we going to require the borrower to pay monthly interest? Are we going to finance the interest in if necessary? Are we going to defer it to the back end, which I would not recommend, by the way? You can defer. I did that for many years with Patty. But every time you're deferring an interest payment, your risk is going up because the amount you've basically got out there with the borrower goes up every month that they don't make a payment. And when they're not making monthly payments, they don't see how fast those holding costs are adding up. So we have made the decision. We've got 2 outstanding loans that are deferred payments, and I'll never do it again unless it's somebody I've worked with for a long time and I feel really comfortable. So if we have a borrower that needs some help on the cash flow, they can't make monthly payments, now what we do, if the numbers all work, we will finance their interest into the loan, right? So we'll add 6 months of interest to the principal of the loan, and then they're going to pay a little interest on interest at the end. So that's the downside to them, for the benefit of not having to come up with cash out of their pocket every month. So we've done that. We've got the biggest interest reserve we started out with was a $210,000 anticipated interest. right? That was a 12-month loan, a commercial loan. And we wanted to free up the cash flow for the developers, and so we agreed to do that because it still fit within our loan-to-value numbers. So we still felt like that was a good risk. Now the downside to them is they're paying they're going to pay interest on that interest, which adds, depending on the size of the loan, either a few hundred, a few $1,000s. But the benefit is they didn't have to come up with cash flow out of their pocket. So we do that a lot. Points, we like to get the points up front at closing. Why? The points keep our light bills on. They pay my employees. That's really the bread and butter, are the points. And by the way, you guys probably know this, but if I'm trying to decide as the lender if I'm going to charge more in points or more in interest, like the borrower says, hey, I'll pay you more interest to have fewer points, am I going to like that or not like that? Not going to like that. Why? The interest rate is annualized. So in my example, it's 12%. It's 12% whether it's 1% a month for a year. So if it's only out 6 months, I'm only getting 6% interest. If it's out 12 months, I'm getting the 12%. But if I have 3 points on my loan example, I get that $3,000 whether that loan is out for 1 day or 12 months. So the quicker those loans pay off, the more return I'm getting on those points. It doesn't change based on the length of the loan. It's a set fee. So as a lender, I'm always going to prioritize the points over the interest. And if we need to fudge it and go down on one, I'm going to go down on the interest rate for the borrower rather than the points. That's just my personal bent there. All right, so when you're setting your parameters, you're looking at things like the points, how many are you charging? A common loan, 12%, 3 points. We know people who do 15% interest and 5 points, 14 and 4. You have to decide based on your model, your market, what you can charge, what you want to charge. Then you're looking at the interest rates, what's common in your market. We know people in Chattanooga who get 15% and 5 points all day long, and they're busy as they can be because their market supports that. Other people say there's too much competition in my market. I can only get 10% or 12% or whatever it is. You have to decide what interest rate you want to set. Then you have to decide about your fees. Are you going to charge an underwriting fee for your time to underwrite? Are you going to prepare loan documents and charge a loan doc prep fee? Are you going to charge a wire fee? Are you going to charge a payoff? I mean, you decide. There's a million junk fees out there. We try to keep it simple in our business. And in fact, we have a lot of borrowers. Sometimes we'll say, okay, our rates are 12.99 and 3 points. And they'll say, well, we're going to go with this lender over here because they're only charging me 11% and 3 points. I'm like, well, have you compared their fees to my fees? Because when you add up all these fees that the other lender's charging, you're actually paying more like 15% and 3 points, right? So if you're the borrower out there, always ask the lender to be very transparent about the fees because you want to really compare apples to apples. All right, so those are the types of parameters you're going to set up. You do want to make sure what market do you want to be in, what states, for instance. I agree with Jeff, start local. I ended up starting in Virginia because that's where all my borrowers were, because I speak a Dealmaker. So people knew me from Dealmaker. Over the time, we've added on a lot of the eastern states and a couple of west and Texas. We got loans in Texas. And that was an intentional decision when we didn't go up and say, hey, we're going to loan in Texas. We got approached by a borrower. We underwrote the deal and said, we like this borrower, we like this deal. They happen to be in Texas. How are the Texas foreclosure laws? What does it look like? What is usury in Texas? And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And if we like Texas and we like the borrower and we like the deal, we said, guess what? Guess we're loaning in Texas, right? But two things about that. One, usury. Everybody know what usury is? Probably somebody might not. Every state will have a limit on how much you can charge in interest and fees before you're in violation of charging too much. That usually applies to owner-occupied loans. And I should have pointed that out at the beginning. What I'm talking about today, by the way, are business purpose loans. Loaning to flippers, loaning to investors. I am not talking about loans where you're loaning to people who are going to move into the property. That is not at all what we're talking about. That's a whole different ball of wax because there's a whole lot more rules about that. And I'm not licensed to do that, so I don't do anything that's not an investor loan. So what that means for me is I'll never loan to an individual. They have to have a business for me to loan to them, or a business trust or something like that. Why? Because I want every indicia possible that this is not a personal owner-occupied loan. I make them sign an investor affidavit. They are swearing to me that this is a business purpose loan, that neither they nor anybody they know as a friend or family are going to move into it ever. Right? This is important. So I kind of lost where I was, but usury. So usury doesn't apply as much in some states, if at all, to business purpose loans, but you still need to look. Know your market, know your laws, know your foreclosure laws, your usury laws. Do you need to be licensed? In California, for instance, even as a hard money lender, I'd have to go get licensed. There are a few states that require that. I will never loan in California. I'm not going to go through those hoops. But you've got to know the laws in the markets you're going to loan in because you do not want to get in trouble for doing it wrong. So define your territory. You can start small. The other thing I was going to tell you about why I feel comfortable loaning in multiple states, because a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to loan in a state that I can't go inspect the property myself. We use a company called Sitewire.co. I don't know if you guys have heard of Sitewire, Sitewire. And Sitewire is a company that allows the borrower to put an app on their phone, and every time they ask for a draw request, they have to upload pictures and videos, whatever we say they have to upload, on that app. All those photos and videos are geolocated to that very specific property. So nobody can send me a picture of a hot water heater and say it's in 123 Main Street and it's really a picture in some other house. Because I get a dot. Patty manages our Sitewire stuff. She gets a dot that knows exactly where that hot water heater picture was taken, right? So Sitewire has given us a lot of confidence because when the borrowers upload those pictures, we've had them do before pictures and a whole scope of work, broken into tranches, what they're going to get for every category of draw, right? Windows, exterior doors, interior doors, bathrooms, plumbing, whatever it is. And when they go to file their draw request, they upload whatever videos and pictures we've required. It's geolocated. A licensed GC in that state who's employed by Sitewire reviews all those videos, the before videos, the ones that have just got uploaded, the photos, reviews the scope of work and says, okay, I approve this draw, or I'm only going to release 80% of this category, or whatever it is, because they're matching up the scope of work to the photos and the videos. That has allowed us to expand our territory, because we don't have to physically go to every property. It also allows us to have smaller draw fees, because we don't have to physically send somebody to a property, which would be more expensive to do. So anyway, that's how we do multiple states. So start where you want to start, research the laws, and then expand as you feel comfortable. You want all this foundation stuff to be rock solid before you scale. For me, we're going to get into the systems. I'm not a systems gal. I wish I were Sigma 6, Sigma 5, whatever that thing is, 6 Sigma, whatever it is. I don't even know the name for it, so I'm not a systems person. I'm an ADD person, so I got to have the systems person, right? My biggest thing about scaling, to be totally transparent, is I'm scaling as I go. I wish that I'd had the luxury of time to create all my systems and processes before I ever did a single loan. I did not have that luxury, so we are doing systems and processes as we go. But if you have the luxury, set it all up before you start loaning. All right, once you have your foundation, now we're looking at risk management. A friend of mine who has mission funding in Chattanooga says, hey, private lending, hard money lending, it's only about two things: managing risk and protecting your spread. Your spread is what you make your money. Manage your risk so that you don't lose money. That's it. Manage your risk, protect your spread. But there's a lot in that. There's a lot in that, manage the risk, right? Jeff talks a lot about due diligence. I did that as a keynote speech at Dealmaker last year. Due diligence is your friend. And sometimes we feel very nosy asking people for information. I feel like, they're so nice. I shouldn't ask them for this. Well, that's crazy. This is a business, right? Even if you're just a private lender, always do your due diligence. And you're going to basically do due diligence on three things: the people, the property, and the paperwork. Don't skimp on any of them, So let's talk about what does it mean to underwrite the borrower. You can decide how much information or how little information you want about the borrower. We always want to know their experience. Have they done this before? How many times have they done this? Have they done this in the market they're looking at doing a loan in? How many houses have they flipped on that street? How well do they know the market? We're trying to figure out, do they know what they're doing and how well do they know the market? We do not, so far, but this is probably going to change, we have not required a credit check or a background check. That's probably going to change for us, because I think it's becoming critical to ask for those things. I'll give you an example on a background check. You might do a background check for someone, and I know a couple of lenders this has happened to, and find that, yeah, this looks like a great borrower, but they've got 25 seatbelt violations. What does that tell me about that borrower? They don't think they have to follow the rules, right? I mean, how many times do they drive without a seatbelt that they didn't get caught? If they've got 25 tickets, how many times do they drive without it, right? Or moving violation, speeding violation, whatever it is. It may have nothing to do with lending at all, except that it tells me about their personality, that they're not rule followers. Well, we as lenders have rules. We have rules because we have to protect the money. The capital has to be protected at all costs. So there are rules that borrowers have to follow. So I'm not necessarily, if I'm doing a background check, I do want to look for bankruptcies and fraud and that kind of stuff. But I also want to just look to see, do they look like relatively law-abiding citizens, or are they just rule breakers? So vet the person, background checks, credit checks, experience. I have done it before where I've asked them to fill out an experience verification worksheet. It's just a little Excel table. I've said in the last 12 months, please write down the address of every property you flipped. What did you pay for it? What entity did you flip it in? What's the LLC name? How much was your rehab, and what did you sell it for? Why do I want that besides just seeing how many they've done? Because that's all checkable on the public records. I can go look to see, did that LLC do these loans on this property? What did they buy that property for? What did they sell it for? Like in North Carolina, we have tax stamps that are based on the value of the property when it's sold or purchased, right? So I can verify if they're blowing smoke or they're telling me the truth, right? So vet the borrower pretty clearly. Verify the property. This is another thing we're getting more strict on. We like to believe that all borrowers know how to do comps and that they give us great comps. We look at the comps, but borrowers might think something's a comp that's not a comp, right? So you really can say, okay, borrower provided comps, or we want a broker price opinion or comparative market analysis, are kind of the same thing, or do you want a full-blown appraisal? I know lenders who won't loan at all without an after-repaired value appraisal or a current market value appraisal, depending on how they do it. And as Jeff said, if their margin is too thin to pay for that appraisal, they probably shouldn't do this deal, because really that appraisal protects them and protects the lender. Because they might go into a deal thinking their profit's going to be yay big because they're basing it on their comps, and an appraisal might say, no, you're never going to get that. So to me, it's actually helpful for the borrower and the lender to get an appraisal. And, it's $400, $700, depending on where you are. So, an appraisal, background checks on the borrowers, credit score check, these types of things. For the property, by the way, appraisal's great, but if you don't get an appraisal and you're looking at comps, the other thing I like to do is get on Google Earth and drive the property on my computer. I want to see what the neighborhood looks like. I want to see if I end up taking that house back, would I be comfortable walking down the street at midnight to get a rent check or whatever, right? I want to know what the neighborhood looks like. If this is a beautiful house and they've sent me these great pictures, but every neighbor has 10 cars jacked up on cinder blocks and 25 people on the front porch smoking cigarettes all day long, that's going to be harder to sell that property. You're going to have a gorgeous property. If you got a big environmental issue right next door, you're going to have trouble selling that property. The borrower is going to have trouble. I want to know, how easy is it for this borrower to get out of this when they're done, right? I don't want somebody to buy the best house in a bad neighborhood. I want their houses to look the same. Buy something that everybody in that neighborhood wants. If their plan is to refinance the house, by the way, I want to make sure that it's the type of property and that they have a realistic expectation of getting refinanced so they can take me out of it. So we will ask, if that's their plan, have you spoken to any DSCR lenders, debt service coverage ratio lenders, refinance lenders, traditional banks, anything that's going to take you out? Have you already gotten a pre-approval for this project, assuming you do what you're going to do? How many conversations have you had with those lenders? People say, oh yeah, I haven't really gotten around to that. It's going to be a problem for me. What's your plan B? Can you flip this house if you can't get it refinanced? I want to know these things, because our job is to help the borrowers be as successful as they can be. Because we don't want to do just one loan with that borrower, we want to do 100. And if they lose their shirt on loan 1, or even loan 10, because we didn't help them spot blind spots, because face it, none of us sees our own blind spots, right? Who sees their own blind spots? Not me. Not me. So we're trying to help the borrower spot blind spots like, this is not a refinanceable property. for instance. We just loaned on a roundhouse. We had the whole conversation with the borrower. She wants to refinance. I said, you may not be able to get this refinance because it's a weird property. So can you flip it? Do the numbers work? Yes, the numbers work. She's willing to do that if she can't get refinanced. Okay, we'll loan. But if she said it's refinance or nothing, I'm not sure we would have done that loan because I'm not sure we could have gotten out of it at the end of it. Does that make sense? All right, so that's the borrower, the people in the property. What about the paperwork? You've heard Jeff talk about the paperwork. I'm a lawyer. Paperwork will make you or break you. I also, after 34 years of lawyering, can tell you that people don't read the paperwork at all, even when they sign it. We just had a situation come up this week where we've been working with the bar for a number of projects, and we had upped our draw fees. And we'd had that conversation, but you know when you have many, many conversations about many different properties, things get lost, right? But in our construction agreement, which by the way, we always have a construction agreement on a flip, and I can talk about that in a minute, the new fee was in the construction agreement, which the borrowers signed. So they just did their first draw, we deducted the higher fee, and I get an immediate email. Why is this fee so much higher? I knew immediately. My borrower didn't read the paperwork. We'd had this conversation, but that conversation was weeks and weeks and weeks before the actual closing. She probably forgot, but she obviously didn't read it because her signature was right on that page, but she didn't know. So read your paperwork, make sure it's right, use an attorney, interview that attorney. How many closings have they done? Have they ever had problems where their documents were not found to be valid? Ask the hard questions like you would with any other professional. You're going to go to a cardiologist, you want to know how many times they've fixed the plumbing in somebody's heart if they're going in there with a knife, right? So ask those hard questions. As I mentioned when Jeff was speaking, we were trying to let the borrowers choose their attorneys to draft the documents, and so many of them were wrong, or we were waiting for 3 or 4 weeks. We were ready to fund, but it took 3 or 4 weeks to get the lawyers to get the documents. Then I finally said, enough, I'm done. We're drafting our documents unless somebody says otherwise. Well, I'm only licensed in North Carolina, so how can I draft documents in Missouri or Texas or Indiana or West Virginia, all places we have loans? We just subscribed to a software called Lightning Docs. And Lightning Docs is put out by a law firm in California called Fortra Law, F-O-R-T-R-A. I have nothing to do with Fortra Law. I get no compensation for this. I'm just telling you my experience. That law firm specializes in working with private lenders. And they put together this software where they've hired attorneys in all 50 states to draft their documents and keep their documents up to date. So I've only used it twice, and the maximum fee I get charged by Lightning Docs is $500 per loan package. Well, that cost gets passed on to the borrower, usually at a little upcharge for my time. Right? So now I'm going through, and it'll check the box. You know, do you want deferred interest or financed in or monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. You just check the boxes. And when you've gone through all of the interview, it puts it all together in a huge package of documents. Way more than I've ever gotten from any attorney. Way more complete, way more protective of me as the lender. And I kept waiting on both these closings because these are investors to say, good Lord, that's a lot of paperwork. Why are you giving us so many pages? Nobody batted an eye. Nobody batted an eye. So a lot of these lawyers that we were using said, well, yeah, we'll just prepare a note and deed of trust or a note and mortgage. Well, there's so much more. There's the personal guarantee. There's the affidavit of investor loan. There's a construction agreement. There's an environmental indemnity, the blah, 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 blah. It can go on and on and on. And that's how you protect yourself as a lender. So far, 2 transactions down, I'm a fan of Lightning Docs. And again, that cost gets passed on to the borrower. What's that? Oh, golly. Thank you, Sue. I feel like I need to be in some sports car with the wind blowing through my hair now. Anyway, not that my hair would really blow, obviously. All right, so you're gonna vet the borrower, you're gonna vet the property, you're gonna vet the paperwork. Never, ever, ever skimp on the paperwork, and please, for goodness sakes, read your paperwork if you're the borrower or the lender. Know what you're signing, because you're all adults, you're all competent adults, and in a court of law, you will be held to the standard of knowing what the heck you just signed. So don't say, I don't have time. And also, that reminds me, I want to echo something Jeff said. If someone is pressuring me, I need you to fund this tomorrow, and they're pushing me beyond when I can comfortably do my due diligence, the answer is no. I'm not your lender. Because your emergency does not constitute my emergency. You should have planned better. Right? You should have planned better. Okay, let's move on. All right, so now we've talked about the paperwork, the vetting, the risk management. Let's talk about the team structure when you scale up. Now, when you start, you're going to be all of these people yourself. That's what I was for 22 years. Every single role in my business, which wasn't really a business, it was a hobby, was me. Now I'm starting to add on people. So let's talk about the different roles. This, what I'm showing you, is a mature business. So this business has grown into these roles. They didn't start this way. They started small. So you've got your core leadership. You got your CEO, just like any business, sets the vision, sets the tone, sort of oversees everything. You've got your COO, your Chief Operating Officer. They're making sure that the operations are running smoothly. Like Allie Murphy is currently our COO on a contract basis. She's set up our CRM software, our customer relations management software. She's helping us get our systems together, and I'm the bottleneck. Mary, we need this info. Yeah, I know. Once I give it to her, she'll have it done like that. But anyway, so COO manages the operations, the systems, and sort of the whole workflow in the business. And again, you're going to be all of these when you first start if you're a solo operator. CFO, Chief Financial Officer. And by the way, right now, I am the CEO, CFO, underwriter, loan servicer, almost all of it. Patty's doing a bunch too. But anyway, so just because I'm talking to you doesn't mean I don't do many of these roles myself. CFO, Chief Financial Officer, they're overseeing all your money, right? What's going on with the money, the flow of everything. And then you have a CMO, which Allie's also doing for us, your Chief Marketing Officer. They're the ones responsible for making sure you're staying on brand, you're getting your marketing out there, you're doing all that. Now, I hate marketing. I hate marketing with a passion. I love the result of it, and I love to see other people's marketing. I'm just really bad at it. So one of the first things I did was bring on Allie, say, you've got to do all the marketing. So she calls Patty and I, okay, I need a deal. What'd you just fund? I need some pictures. I'm going to say this. Speaking of pictures, Allie's on our case all the time. So when you guys find me somewhere and take a selfie with me so I can get Allie off my back this week and I can send her stuff, we need selfies in front of the Dealmaker sign. So just come find me if you would. I would love to take a picture with you guys. So that's your core leadership. Then you have to have a lending division, right? You've got a director of lending that's setting the tone for how are we finding our borrowers? What are we doing with these borrowers? How are we managing it? They're managing the loan originators. Your loan originators are like your salespeople. They're in the rooms like this, meeting the borrowers, finding the borrowers, right? That's your loan originator. You've got the underwriters, which those are the people doing the due diligence. And again, this may all be one seat doing all these jobs until you make enough to branch out. And you've got processors and closers. So the way I look at it, and this is all before the loan closes, you've got the loan processor who's working with the borrower to say, here are all the documents we need prior to closing. Here are your LLC docs, your this, all this stuff we need. And I should go back and talk about that in a minute. And then you get the closing. All right, let's make sure that everything's in place. The closing docs have been signed adequately. Then we send our approval. That's me also right now. I always look at everything myself to make sure that everything's signed. Why? Because I don't trust the title companies or even the closing attorneys. They miss signatures. It's busy. There's hundreds and hundreds of pages of paper flying around. If you miss a signature or a notary on a deed of trust, it ain't valid, people. So before I'll wire the money into the closing agent, but my closing instructions are very clear. They may not disburse the funds until they email me copies of every document that was signed at closing. I'll review it right away, but I'm going to review it, and I'm going to check every signature. I'm going to make sure all the documents were signed. I know what needs to be signed, and only then, when I say, yes, you're good to close, then I'll tell them they have approval to disperse the funds. So that's really key. Don't let them disperse the funds without making sure everything is signed. So all that leads you up to closing. Now the loan is in place. You have your operations and servicing. Somebody's got to keep track of the payments. Are all the payments being made on time? Did the title policy come in? Did the recorded deed of trust or mortgage come in? Are the insurances lapsed? Or are they still, sending out notices? Hey, your insurance is going to lapse in 60 days, whatever it is, right? So that's the servicing side of it. And then you have your investor relations. If you're taking other people's money, then you need someone who can be the interface with investors, right? Because you want your investors to trust you. So you have to be transparent with them. You have to communicate with them. You have to let them know what's going on. If you're in a vacuum and you don't say anything, what does human nature do? It assumes the worst, right? The other reason I like our borrowers to pay monthly interest payments is because I want to pay my investors monthly. A lot of people don't. They might pay them quarterly. I don't have a fund yet, by the way. I'm just paying one-off investors right now. I want to pay them monthly because every month they see evidence that this thing is working. They're getting paid. They're not waiting around for 6 or 8 months and wondering, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, is Mary going to pay me when this loan gets paid off? They see every month that I'm paying them. So you might want a dedicated investor relations person as you get farther on down. All right, we're going to run out of time, so I'm going to speed it up. Systems. Your systems and your staff really are the key to your scalability. Systems are key. And like I said, this is not my forte, so I'm being drug along kicking and screaming. I know it's necessary. It's just not my favorite thing to do. So I'm working on it all the time. Everybody who's doing this as a business must have a CRM, customer relations management software. You're going to track every lead. You're going to have automated responses. Somebody goes on our website, puts in an inquiry or a contact form. Our CRM automatically emails them back, sends them, I don't know what all it sends because that's out of my pay grade. Whether they send them a calendar link, if we want to jump on a call. You can set up your automations however you want. But that CRM is your hub. It's where you track all the information about the people you've talked to, and you're moving them along a pipeline automatically in this CRM, or you're dragging them. Is it just a lead? Is it an actual inquiry? Have they closed a loan? Is it an active loan? Is it in payoff? You're just boop, 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 moving them on down the line. So you know at a glance what you've got going on with your peoples. All right, so you've got the customer relations software or system. You've got your loan origination software. Now, I don't have a loan origination software. That's often where it creates the documents for you or whatever. I have Lightning Docs, but I don't have an integrated origination module for my software. I use the mortgage office right now, and I have their loan servicing module, and I have their construction loan module, and I have their mortgage pool module, and I would love to get their loan origination module, but we're doing this as we can afford it, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap. We're probably paying right now $650, $700 a month. That's a lot of money. So my next purchase would be the loan origination module, because when I get that, I put all the information in once about the borrower, and it automatically integrates with the document preparation through Lightning Docs, and it makes everything easier. Right now, I'm doing a lot of that by hand. So one day soon, hopefully we'll have the loan origination software. Loan servicing software. This I use almost daily. So we have our loans set up that every loan payment is due on the 1st of the month. Because I did not want to think, oh God, who's due on the 2nd, who's due on the 5th, who's due on the 12th, which is why I used to do it. You used to just have the monthly payment due 1 month after the closing. We don't do that anymore. It's too much to keep track of as you grow. So we have when we do the closing, we collect interim interest for the number of days between the closing and the end of that month. Then they don't pay anything the next month, and then the following month, they pay in arrears for that month. So if I closed a loan today, we'd collect interest till October 31st. They would owe nothing on November 1st, but on December 1st, they would owe for November. So we collect in arrears. So somebody has to keep track of that. That's loan servicing. Are those payments being made on time? Is the insurance still up to date? Do we need to send out default letters? All that kind of stuff. So that's your loan servicing. And all of these things, except the CRM, the loan origination, loan servicing, can usually be done in one software. TMO does the mortgage office, does theirs by modules. Other software that I haven't used yet, but like the mortgage operator or lender, LNDR, I think they have it more all one thing. It's more expensive per month because it's not broken down by module. But do your research on what software works for the way you want to run your business. Document management is critical. If you can't find your documents, how are you going to enforce your loans? So your original promissory notes have to be kept in a safe place. So I keep mine in a safe, all right? If you don't have a safe, put them in a fireproof box in your freezer because it's the last place in your house that's going to burn down. That was what my firefighter client told me years ago. And I just heard somebody else repeat it the other day, so I think it must be true. Your deeds of trust and mortgages and your assignments of rents or any of that are going to be recorded, so they're always in the public record system. But when you're doing your file management, pick what are you going to use? Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, whatever it is. Have a consistent filing system, whatever it is. You're doing your files by the loan number or the property address. I wouldn't do it by the borrower. I've done that. But it gets complicated because I've got one borrower that may have 10 loans. I want to know, what do I have on Main Street? Might be 5 different borrowers, but I just do it by property is what we're going to do in 2026. But figure out how you're going to file these things off. So anytime you need to find something, you know exactly where it's going to be. Oh, that's going to be in the 123 Main Street file, under pre-closing, under term sheet. That's going to be in the blah, blah, blah file, in the final documents, whatever it is. Just figure out a consistent system and a consistent naming protocol so you can, 1, have a system so everybody in your office can follow that, and 2, you'll know where to find everything. Privacy. We take people's social security numbers, right? We looked into ShareFile, and there's some other ones where they can send things securely. They're a little bit of the pain. They're a little bit expensive. We're now using the security features on Google, the Gmail thing. I'm not sure we love it. So we may be switching to something like a ShareFile. But you're responsible. If you get somebody's social security number and it gets stolen from you and their identity gets stolen, you're probably going to be potentially liable for that. You may want to consider also having cybersecurity insurance. Somebody hacks into your system and gets somebody's information. You might want to consider cyber insurance. Okay, you also need software for your accounting. So I've had QuickBooks forever. I just use QuickBooks in an Excel spreadsheet. Now I have the mortgage office that also does all the reporting. I can push a button and see exactly what I've paid every investor, exactly what payments have been made on every property, exactly what the borrowers have done. So that is a big piece for me now that makes me feel better. So I'm not counting on, oh, did I remember to put that in my little spreadsheet? No, I put the payment in TMO and it creates all these things. So make sure that you have the right accounting software because you need to be able to tell your borrowers or your investors exactly what their financial situation is at any time. And then obviously automate things as much as possible. When I have a business, I'm looking at what can I eliminate, delegate, or automate. That's the way to buy your time back. Do a time audit. So for 2 weeks, write down every single thing you do every day. Only keep those things on your plate when you're ready to delegate that it's in your zone of genius or you're the only one who can do it. Otherwise, eliminate what you can eliminate and delegate the rest. Okay? I got 5 seconds. Let's go. Well, good. I'm near the end. Raising capital, this is a big deal. You need to be compliant with the SEC. If you're doing a wrap loan, which you'll hear more about, that's not an SEC-regulated thing because everybody's directly in the loan. If you're doing a fractionalized note where everybody is in the note in a first lien position or whatever, that's not an SEC-regulated thing. They're in the loan. But if you're taking their money and they're not in a collateralized position, it is now a security. So you have to follow the SEC rules. We don't have time to get into them other than to say the 2 big categories are 506B and 506C filings. 506B says you can take accredited or a certain number of non-accredited investors. 506C is accredited only. If you take does everybody know what accredited investor is? There's somebody that makes $200,000 a year in income for the last 2 years. If they're single, $300,000 if they're married, and they expect it to go on for the next year, or they have $1 million net worth, not including their primary residence. That's an accredited investor. If I did a 506C fund, and I only took accredited investors, I could advertise my fund anywhere. If I'm doing a 506B, I can't. I have to only do it to friends and family and people I have significant contacts with. So no time to tell this because I'm a minute and a half over. Marketing, you got to market. I'm not going to go through all this. Be in the room. Chuck says be in the room. You'll see Patty's shirt. It says need REI funding. There's a QR code. You scan her back. It'll go right to our website or our contact form. All right? So we're trying. I've got all our swag out there. Please come take it so we don't have to carry it back to Asheville. Be online. Be in person. Do all the things. Always be transparent, credible, and honest. That's the way it works. And that's pretty much it. I'll leave that there.
Wow. No, you don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Come on back up. What'd you guys think of that? Who's got a takeaway? Who had like an aha moment, something you got to go home and do, something you're thinking about, a breakthrough? Darlene, Dealmaker Fit.
Dealmaker Fit. Mary, love, love, love. I'm going to do something with that scarf, girl. You're driving me nuts.
It's driving me nuts,
I'll be your wardrobe
How about
consultant
we just take it
for
off? How's that? I was cold
I
this morning, so
love
I put
your
it on.
comment. Poor planning on their part does not constitute an emergency on mine.
They'll think it does.
Yeah, I know.
They'll argue with you, but it does not.
Yeah. Thank you.
Stand your ground, so to speak.
That's a good one. Who else? Paul White. What did you think? Paul, you've done a lot of lending. What did you think of that session?
Of course, it's great. When Mary does anything, it's great, right?
Thank you, Paul.
I think it's important, especially for guys that haven't made loans, is to have your systems in place, and that does include software, and that's really important.
Yeah.
So because
Yeah.
it's really easy to say, well, when I get to a certain number, I'll do it. But I was listening to a Hard Money podcaster the other day, and they're saying that's one of the most important things, to start out with that first.
And is your software, your lending software, up and going? Because Paul has
Oh,
one
yeah, it
too.
is, and it's less expensive for people that are
Yeah,
just
what's
getting
it called?
started. Lending Copilot.
Lending
but that's not.
Copilot.
I wouldn't be in self-serving.
I know, but I should have mentioned you because you have been working on that.
Yeah,
'cause I know we've had
but
conversations.
the point being is that you get out of control really fast.
Yeah.
And the first rule in any investing is don't lose money, and especially don't lose other people's money, because then you'll
Right.
never see any again. So.
And when everything is in your head and nowhere else, you think you can manage it, but as you get busier, you
Okay.
just can't.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on what Paul just said, and it's important because you can get lost really fast, or whatever it was that last sentence you just said. What I just got from you is know what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and delegate.
Delegate,
Like
absolutely.
I have a problem with that too, especially there's probably a lot of control freaks in the room. Right? Anyone else control freak in the room? Okay. And so delegation.
I struggle with that, and
Yeah.
I mean, bringing Patty on was the best thing I did because scopes of work and the renovations are not my strong point. I've
Who
done
else?
some of it, it's not my strong
Who
point.
else has a takeaway, a breakthrough moment? Anyone over this way? Chuck? Anyone over this way? Okay, Chris?
Don't shoot me for this, but I got my real estate license a couple years ago. And since then, I've been using Bold Trail, and now I've got access to Go High Level. Would
Yeah.
you suggest anything else besides that?
So I'm not the best person to ask. We use Go High Level, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and Go High Level was
lot
the
of
one that
people like it.
everybody told me they liked the best.
Really AI-oriented.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
use
Allie
Keep,
does
and
all
it's
our
a lot more
CRM.
complicated.
I'm lucky I even know how to log into it, honestly, Chris. I'm not
Mary,
a techie
you
person.
mentioned Six Sigma, but it takes me back 25 years when I was an engineer. I was Six Sigma certified
Yeah.
in lean manufacturing. So you're like pulling out of my background. That's something you didn't know about me. So I love systems as well.
Yeah.
Who else? Okay, Cindy.
Yes, so your story is kind of like what I lived already this year.
Okay.
Setting up the lending business and writing the SOP for draws that morning before we did the first draw.
Yep, yep, I've done that.
And
Here, let's do a process, quick.
yeah, so it's, in for our next set of loan that's going out, we're making it be the first instead of the, if it was on the 7th, it was due on the 7th.
Yep.
So it's just comforting knowing that my path is still
and
going the right way.
you can do it.
Yeah.
So what I think is important, if you're a solo person, you want to scale, every time you do something in your business, write it down or do a screen video of you doing whatever it is you're doing, so that's the basis for your SOPs. Like now, so I'm consistent every time. Every time I take in an interest payment, I have a checklist. Okay, I've got to run this through TMO. I've got to put it on this spreadsheet, on that spreadsheet. I've got to send the investor. And I go through every time. Did I do that? Oh, gosh, I didn't send that wire to the investor. I got to do that. So the checklists and the SOPs are very important. But just do it as you do the job, and you'll all of a sudden have a manual of SOPs.
All right, Miss Amy.
Miss Amy,
Hi, thank you, Mary.
you're welcome.
So I'm going to say that I was at the Lending Mastermind in North Carolina.
Oh, yep, Sweetheart Lending Institute. Yep,
Awesome 3 days.
thank you.
What I do appreciate and that you did there, that you also did here, is you went into detail.
Yeah.
And that is appreciated so much.
Thanks.
So I wanted
I
to mention
get
that.
frustrated. I appreciate that comment because I get frustrated when I go to conferences.
so true.
And people tell you what to do it, but not how to do it. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, well, that all sounds great, but give me
They
some
just give you a
practical
little
advice.
bit,
I don't
and
know
then
what
they
that
try to
means.
sell you an $8,000 course, right?
Right.
Anyone
So
ever
just
been there?
Tell me how to do it, not just what to do.
That's
I need to know how.
why I dreamed of this session, and you
Yeah.
delivered it at such a high level. It's very few rooms you can have these conversations in and normalize them. Like this is what we do.
Just a quick question, because we were talking about underwriting, and then we were talking about putting notes into safes and stuff like this. And as some of us kind of have experienced or know that in certain states you can't even hold a note, and in some places you can't do that work.
That's
So how did you-
usually for owner occupied, I believe. Those rules apply more for owner-occupied notes, like people who are living in the house. Like I bought notes from, seller finance notes or whatever, where people are living in the house, and I have to have a third-party servicer. I can't service those. That doesn't, maybe there's states that say even a hard money lender can't do that, but I'm not aware of any. I don't know. If anybody knows that, let me know. My states that I'm in, I can.
That's a good point, Mary, and I'll tell you, my notes are in my file cabinet right now,
Chuck's
but when I
got
go home, I got to switch it over to my safe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else take that? Chuck, what did you think? You're doing a lot of lending here. I know, years ago.
While you're getting to Chuck, can I just do one other thing that I think that is helpful for me? Like, I'll get a payoff, and in my mind, oh, this is a closed loan. I want to go stick the file away. But it's not closed because I haven't sent the certificate of satisfaction yet, right? Or the loan is closed on the front end, and I want to just stick it in my active loan file cabinet, but no, I'm waiting on the final title commitment, or I'm waiting to make sure all the documents came back. So I'm keeping my files now in my new office that just got renovated. Okay, pending this, pending that, and they don't go in the file cabinet for active or closed and paid off until all those steps are done, because that's a visual reminder to me that that's not done yet.
Oh yeah, Mary, on a request for a loan where the borrower is house hacking a rental property, is that considered owner occupied?
You're living in it as a house hacking, then yes, that's owner occupied in my opinion. I will not allow a borrower to live in the house at all.
There you go. It's a really good
because
question.
That I can get in trouble so quick because I'm not following the truth in lending and RESPA and all that stuff, because I'm not doing owner-occupied loans. And if the owner moves in, now I'm in a realm that I'm going to get in trouble with the banking commission. And by the way, it's potentially a felony. And by the way, every time you accept an interest payment check, it's potentially another felony. And in North Carolina, it used to be, I don't know what it is now, but a $25,000 fine every month when you took an interest check.
So, Mary, tell us about Fair Oak and your sponsorship here and stuff, too, while you're up here.
Sure. So, Fair Oaks Funding, like I said, I started this as an actual LLC last November. Patty Bain came to work with me this spring. She's our borrower relation manager and does all our scopes of work and works with borrowers on their draws. We're currently in, 8 or 9 states, and we mostly want to stay kind of on the East Coast, but we've branched out into places like Texas and Missouri and Indiana. Usually if a borrower contacts us, like I said earlier, we'll review it and decide, is this a state we want to be in, a deal we want to be in, a borrower we want to work with, and then we may move into that state, which I feel like we can do more easily with SiteWire and Lightning Docs than we could have before. So we loan on everything, fix and flip, bridge loans, new construction, commercial. We just got contacted about our first transactional funding, like 48-hour deal. That one actually fell out, but we're probably going to look into that. Now, if you're doing that, by the way, I won't loan on a transactional funding. If you guys know transactional, like wholesalers who can't just do the wholesaling anymore, they have to buy the property. So you've got the A to B closing, and then a day or two later, they're selling it to the B to C closing. I won't fund the A to B until the buyer for the B to C closing has their money in the escrow with the title company or the closing agent. I will not do it. I have to make sure
you
that
require
money's
insurance
there.
for that?
I do the whole thing like a real loan because I'm going to underwrite it like a loan. I'm going to have insurance like a loan. Because they're on title and I'm the lender.
All right, last question. Go ahead.
So you mentioned just now new market. Do you have a checklist when you go into a new market?
Do you have a checklist when you go to a new market?
That hasn't made it to the SOP
For
book
now.
yet. But yes, all joking aside, yeah, I'm going to look, first and foremost, is it a lender-friendly state? Like, I'm never going to loan in New York. I did that once. I'll never do it again because it takes 3 years to foreclose. I'm probably not going to loan in Florida because of what's going on in the market there. I'm never going to loan in California. So I look to see, is it one, a state that I never want to loan in? Then I'm going to look at their foreclosure laws and their usury laws to see, is it lender-friendly or am I walking into a hornet's nest? Once I decide, okay, I may be willing to do that state, then I'll look at the borrower and the deal to see if I want to do that particular loan. So that's an overview.
Thought process?
Yeah.
Who likes seeing how Mary Hart thinks? Go ahead. Do you have a question? I want to definitely get you. Hang on. Last one. You have been lending for many, many years, or actually decades, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Decades?
Probably.
If you don't mind, a personal question.
Sure.
What's your end goal?
Well, that's a good question that I don't know that I really
great
have the answer
question.
to because I'm 62 years old. So I think about, what am I doing starting and ramping up a business at 62 years old? That's crazy. I have 3 adult sons, 3 adult stepchildren, but I get bored really easily. So my end game right now is growing a business just to see if I can do it, to better my communities that I'm in, better my borrowers, better my investors, better my employees, just to see if I can do it. And I think I can. And I like that. I like all that about it. My end game, right now, none of my sons would be interested in taking over this business. Patty might want to take it over one day. She's much, much, much younger than I am. But we're not in business a whole year yet, so that's a question. I don't really know. I think about it all the time. What I've told Patty is I said, look, I will bust my ASS till I'm 65, and then I'm going to decide. That's what I've said.
You know, I had, the last Steelmaker in Richmond was in March, and Jim Roberts was there. Did you guys meet him? He's got a big brokerage in Buffalo, New York, near my hometown. And he called me last week, Mary, and he said, I recently turned 60, and all my friends think I should retire. I have no desire to retire, even though I can.
It's called rewired.
Rewired, I like that.
Rewired.
He said, what is wrong with me? I said, you might need some new friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a personal choice. He said, all my friends want to sit around talking about what cholesterol medicine they're going on and what their PSA levels are, and I want to go build my business.
Right.
He said, I need to get back to Dealmaker, where I can be in the right room with the right people.
Well, and I wasn't joking when I said I get bored. Like, my husband is fully retired. He's fully retired. He loves it. He putzes around with the flowers in our yard. He loves everything about it. I would be so miserable. I would be so miserable. I can only watch so much TV. I could read for 8 hours a day, but not for 365 days a year. So I like what I do. I think it's great. I love to help better communities. I like to help people create wealth. I've always liked that. So I don't see an end in sight for me until my body stops me, my brain stops me, or,
Cheryl and I said, if I'm not dead, God's not done.
Yeah. Which, by the way,
because you can work with Share the Love and stuff, too. I mean, there's a lot of needing people out there.
So another friend of ours, Dave Steck, says he runs everything he gets asked to do or decides to do through the filter of 3 things. Will it make me an obscene amount of money? Will it, and he says obscene, will it do good, or will I have fun? And if it doesn't meet at least one of those, he's not going to do it, whatever it is. And he says the most important one is making an obscene amount of money, because with the obscene amount of money, he can do more good and have more fun, right? So he gives a lot of money to charities, but he's very transparent about it. He says, hey, I'm not stopping. He's in the 70s. He's like, I'm not stopping.
Likes that criteria. Anybody?
Yeah.
All right, Mary Hart, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.